I grew up in a retirement home. From as young as I can remember until about the age of 14, I spent nearly every day before and after school being the youngest person in a retirement home, by a long way. This wasn't down to some terrible mix-up. I was meant to be there. When my mum was meant to be there, she ran the place. I was just there because why find me a babysitter when there are 15 elderly residents happy to look after me? Or was I there to look after them? Looking back, it's hard to tell, but as far as I was concerned, I was the kid with 15 grandparents. And to them, I was the grandson that always showed up. I remember a resident called Vi. Vi had dementia. My mum would let me take her for walks to the nearest town, never knowing who was looking after who. I was 8, Vi was 80. The difference in our age was 0. Whenever I'd come back from town, I'd always show my mum all the treats and chocolate bars that Vi had got for me, which always concerned my mum because Vi never took any money with her. I remember a resident called Bert. Bert lived in the home of his sister Dorrie, who he'd lived with his entire life. When it came time for Dorrie to move into a retirement home, Bert happily moved with her. Bert was intelligent, Bert was funny, and Bert had one leg. He'd always get me to pull one of his legs, knowing I could never remember which one was real and which one was fake. But whichever leg I did choose, he'd always find a way to make me jump and scream and laugh along with everyone else in the home. The retirement home sat opposite a school. That meant twice a day the residents could look out of the window and watch the children. Running and playing, shouting and screaming, coming and going from a place where they learn all about the world that they're new to. How must it have felt for these elderly people to live in a home that's not theirs, looking out of the window at children whose lives are beginning whilst their lives are beginning to end. Being the only child in a retirement home was not always fun and games. I was growing up, they were growing old, and the distance between us was vast. I felt like a constant reminder that when their world ends, everyone else's world just keeps on going. When you're a child, you don't notice that the chairs at school are made small just for you. You just see a chair, never aware of the difference, never asking why they are the size they are, you remain ignorant. When you're a child and you meet someone old, this repeats. It's almost as if they begin to exist right at the moment you meet. But the gap between the young and the old has nothing to do with how many years apart you were born. That's nothing. If you think of all the people that have lived on this planet, for the 200,000 years we've been known to inhabit, to be alive and here right now, to arrive at this year somehow at the exact same time as someone else, that itself makes you closer than you think. But we're not taught to pay attention to that in today's world. We're taught to pay attention to the gap, because it's in that gap, by making it us and them, by making out that getting older is something to be afraid of, people are able to create a problem so they can sell us a solution. We receive negative messages from the media and companies everywhere we turn, telling us that getting old is a bad thing, telling us to be worried about aging. They use fear to buy things we don't need, say you're dying, you're ugly, it's all out of greed, they mislead, make us buy things that won't last. Fearing your future should be a thing of the past. We always favour the new over the old, and we end up treating older people like last season's stock, but they're not. They're better than before. They're the most developed, the most experienced, the most top drawer. Older people don't care what people think anymore. My nan, my mum's mum, was like human Wikipedia. She knew everything without using Google. Nan's house was cosy, cute, comfortable, looked great, yet she never took a photo of it, never shared it to social media, never showed it to anyone other than those who saw it with her. She made it nice for us. She made it nice for herself. I admire that. I never had to go on Instagram to be jealous of my nan. Whenever I was around my nan's house, sat on my phone, she'd worry that I was watching the world through a window. She'd worry that I was missing out on all the things I could be doing that she couldn't. Because when our parents or grandparents look at us, they see a part of themselves. But when we look at them, we see people whose lives began the moment we were born, as if they were born older. But for me, growing up in a retirement home, I felt like I was able to gain a sense of how incredible our elders are from a much earlier age than normal. So I was able to really benefit from knowing them and appreciate what their lives had to offer mine. I remember a resident called Molly. Molly was the tiniest, sweetest resident in the home. When I was 10, Molly was 104 years old. She was the oldest person I'd ever met that was still alive. But Molly never made it to 105. It always confused me how we were the exact same height. How could someone that I know I would outgrow just disappear in the night? Being raised in a retirement home, I learned to accept and deal with death from a very young age. But I still had my whole life ahead of me. I still had a life outside of the home. I wonder what life was like for these elderly people to live inside a place where to make new friends, you have to lose old ones. I've always found it strange how it often takes people to find out they're going to die before they truly want to live. How it takes a bad diagnosis to feel like you've received a gift. Allowing us to do all the things we've always wanted to do, to start living life the way we've always wanted to. But most of us seem to want to live our lives like a never-ending movie. But excuse me if I don't want to play pretend. Spoiler alert, you die at the end. Just look at it this way. We're all having a one-life stand. And it's okay to boast a bit, because knowing something won't last gives you more reason to make the most of it. So why do we live our lives as if we have endless time? Being aware and accepting of your death reminds you to truly live your life rather than just simply exist. It reminds us that everyone is temporary and there's no set amount of time we all have. In terms of quantifying life left to live, there's no difference between someone my age and someone who is 90 years old. I don't know my own fate. My circumstances are uncertain. There's every possibility that the oldest person in this room has longer left to live than me. The reason younger people pay less attention to older people is because they're afraid to be reminded of what's to come. We're all frightened about death. But having an awareness of your mortality comes with a desire to live more than that of someone who forgets they're going to die. Because the less we think about something, the less prepared we are for it, and the scarier it becomes. Most of us know someone who died younger than the age we are now, so we should all be excited and grateful about getting to be older, because those who do are the lucky ones. We are all old people waiting to happen. And the way we treat older people now is how we can expect to be treated later. If we treat people like they're waiting to die, they might as well already be dead. Those treated like they have nothing to offer have no reason to get out of bed. But those who are treated positively and respectfully go on to lead better, healthier lives. They feel brighter, they walk lighter, they heal quicker, they live bigger, they live longer. More reason to continue and conquer. If we don't allow ourselves to grow old, then we've already died young. So be proud of your skin and all the places it's been and all the things that it's in, because getting older can be sad, but it doesn't have to be. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. All too commonly, we fail the elderly, fail to treat them properly, so wrongfully they probably begin to think subconsciously that they deserve it, that they are not worth it. But studies have shown that happiness, it has a curve to it. Research has shown that on this U-shaped curve, we're at our happiest at the beginning and at the end of our lives. We come into this world as children, happy, playing, learning, growing, only ever living in the present moment with little awareness of anything outside of ourselves. But then we become adults, and we start to see the nuts and bolts of life. We start to fear getting older, getting sicker, and giving up. We fear losing friends, losing money, and losing love. We want to know everything and do everything. We make irrational decisions and give our attention to people and projects we don't particularly want to. We fear missing out, we take more risks with our time, never truly treasuring today, for there's always another tomorrow. But then comes old age. And with old age comes the realization that nobody lives forever. And when you realize you don't have as much time as you thought, it changes things. You become more open, more grateful, you hold fewer grudges. You become more in tune with your emotions, you hold those you love closer, pay more attention to what makes you happy, and life improves. On the U-curve of happiness, it's in old age we're at our happiest. So if we can do more to learn these lessons from older people earlier on, we could become happier earlier on. I've felt how possible this is ever since my time in the retirement home. Whenever I'd walk into the communal areas and the older people would smile at me, a child, it felt like proof that life's not that bad, coming from people who've been there. It filled me with confidence and comfort in the knowledge that getting older is nothing to be afraid of. We have so much to learn from the older generation. There's no one older than you in the world that hasn't been the age you are now. Because older people were young people before young people were people. Just have a conversation with someone older. It will change your outlook on life. Talk to them about your job, your body, get relationship advice. Just a little bit of perspective can make you think twice about comparing yourself to those on a device, on reality TV, giving you a warped idea of how your life should be. But it can make all the difference, and you don't have to go far to hear the truth from those who were once where you are. Museums are great places to learn stories of long ago, but the world is full of faces with stories for you to know. The world is a museum, and we are the artifacts, a self-serve exhibit for those who join and interact. Older people are amazing. There should be a constant celebration. If their lives were a business, they'd have the highest valuation. If our lives were a race, they'd be the ones in the lead, the last stages of a marathon, guaranteed to succeed. These people are life experts, and they have the opportunity to change the world, but we have to allow them the opportunity to do so, rather than allowing them to become lonely, isolated, get sick, or die younger than if they felt they had a sense of purpose. If we don't do more to listen to those that were here before us and learn what they have to teach us, we'll just keep making the same mistakes over and over again. And history will carry on repeating itself. Older people live on in their stories, and their stories live on in us and our actions. Growing up in a retirement home shaped who I am today, making the most of every moment, knowing someday I'll pass away, teaching me how to be happy and how to be sad, to see both sides of an argument, to find the good in the bad, to give everything you all, every tear and every laugh, to treat every year as if it could be your last. We are all old enough to know better. People do not have best before days. When I'm older, I want to know that I'm still here, that my story is still going on. I do not want to be a ghost before I'm gone. So the next time you sense that age gap between yourself and someone older, remember, they have lived a life. There's no difference between who you are now and who they once were. I often like to think about Vi and Bert and Molly in the retirement home, and how very likely it was that when they were my age, because they were once my age, that they would have been having these same thoughts and same conversations about what life will be like for them when they are older. In a way, we are all Vi, we are all Bert, and we are all Molly. So when you leave here today, you could do something so simple and so easy that can make all the difference. Call your grandparents, or call your parents, or the next time you see someone elderly sat alone, start a conversation. It could save their life, and it might just change yours. Thank you.